He's got to be the last person you want your team when you're chasing points.
A little dodgy call where they should have gone the video ref there, end up costing the game.
If that was a forward pass, I'll bungee jump with no rope.
You basically can only beat who you have in front of you, so yeah, I think that's awesome.
And they're doing that, so good luck to them.
Crowd is ready, players are ready, referee says go.
Welcome to the most must-see NRL podcast. Welcome to the NRL Point of Difference, brought to you this week by the Capta Projects. Preety, what have we got to discuss this week?
Wow, sponsors. How good are we going? How's that festival? It's all happening on the NRL Point of Difference podcast. On this week's episode, another bumper week. We've got the Panthers Eels recap, Raiders a dark horse for the final, signing news and off-contract players, and much more to get through in the next 40 minutes. So, without further ado, Rego, what was your highlight of the weekend?
Oh, hang on. Before we get into that, we've got to address one of the comments that we had on one of our videos. We like to involve the fans in our discussions, in bringing them to the podcast. So we've got another comment from Joshua Lassou. He basically was saying, so at the conclusion of the round 19's trip to Townsville, the Panthers will have actually travelled more kilometres than the average Sydney team and will still sit comfortably atop the ladder. Can we expect an apology in the next episode for the comments made in episode 6? Well, I think the comment made was you?
Yeah, I don't think I was diminishing the Panthers' achievement of coming first. I think I was merely saying that the Cowboys and other teams that have had further to travel than Sydney teams, because a lot of the games have been played in Sydney, which is stupid, because it is stupid in hindsight, because that always happen. Because Cowboys, there's more games played in Sydney than there is in North Queensland.
Well, that was what Buzz Rossfield reported in his article, and he's using that as the reason why Panthers are actually doing so well. But to be honest, if I'm looking at the Panthers draw, I see that as the reason why Panthers are doing so well. So they've had a draw against Newcastle, and they had a loss to Parramatta very early on, but they've had two difficult games all year. You could probably throw Canberra in there. So Melbourne they beat by 6 points. That was a pretty good game. They beat Roosters in round 1. Okay, fair enough. It was round 1. You know, Roosters aren't the best starters in the.
That's a long time ago now, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's the thing about Panthers. I'd be really interested to see how they go against Melbourne and Roosters now, as opposed to back when the season first started.
Yeah, and we won't know till finals, which I think you're right. I think we'll play into Penrith's downfall. I think you need those tune-up, big, high-intensity games in the lead-up to finals just to give yourself a little warm-up, little taste test of what it's all going to be about. And you can't... Momentum is a big thing, which they've got, but I don't know if it's giving them a whole lot, just keep on winning against lower-placed teams.
Yeah, well, that win against Canberra was pretty convincing. I know Canberra ended up coming back towards the end, and that's when Ivan Cleary made that comment about referees bringing people back into the game, or bringing clubs back into the game through manipulation, through 6-again calls and things of that nature. But yeah, that was pretty convincing. But since then, they've beat Parramatta, which we'll go into later in this episode.
Lassou is obviously a Penrith fan, so look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to diminish Penrith's achievements of coming first. That was not my intention. I was merely saying that the Cowboys may have been doing it tough than other teams, which in hindsight they probably aren't. So take that back.
Okay, so Lassou, probably one of our most avid listeners, got an apology. So hopefully that you don't tune out now that we're kind of bagging out your beloved Penrith Panthers. But we're here to entertain the masses and not just appeal to the one individual. And we'll say what comes to our mind rather than trying to please everyone.
And I think Penrith's run is a pretty universally held opinion that that might be the downfall, I think.
Well, yeah, they've got 13 wins at the moment. I think, is it 13 or is it 15?
Yeah, I think it's 13.
13, and then I think to win the comp, they'll probably end up having 18, if my maths is correct, or 19. Yeah, something ridiculous. So
they'll win two more now, and then the finals they'll win 3. So 5 more is 18.
Look, I'm going to go into a little teaser into our topic this week. Before we go into our highs and lows, I'm going to say that if Parramatta play Penrith in round 1 of the finals, I'm saying that Parramatta actually topple Penrith. And I just don't see Penrith making it past the semi-finals. Oh, no, sorry. When I say semi-finals, I mean prelims. So they won't make it past.
Shit, it's a
they
big call.
won't make it into the grand final.
Well, the way Parramatta played on the weekend, I don't know where you get that from. What confidence you see in Parramatta that they can beat Panthers?
Look, I'll explain it when we go into our critique.
Right.
But I've got plenty to say about Parramatta as well.
Well, Lasso, you hear that? Lasso, sorry. Look forward to that.
Look, Lasso or Lasso? I want you to comment as well and just clarify what your name is and how you'd like to pronounce it.
I've got a feeling you might hear from him next week again after this topic. But that's good. We like hearing from the fans. Yep,
that's definitely right. And that's why I want everyone to start contributing and posting those comments. I wanted to add some discussion so we can discuss in the following weeks. And it's going to be exciting to hear what fans have to say and give us their critique.
Yeah, I get bored just talking to radio every night, so it'd be nice to get some other involvement from you guys out there.
All right, there's enough of that. All right, let's talk about our highs then. You mentioned in the car that you were driving on the way here and you couldn't stop thinking about that Cody Ramsey double down debut.
That was definitely my highlight. I just loved the theatre of it and seeing his family in the crowds, cheering him on, seeing the emotional side of how hard he's worked to get to that first grade debut and then to score 2 tries. And then also his big group of mates there on the sidelines. And I hear they all had $100 bet, each of them, on him to score the first try, in which he did. So he won them over $1,000 on the weekend. So.
Yeah, I think it's in total 52,000, something ridiculous like that. But it's funny because he actually hasn't seen his family in over 6 months because of the COVID bubble. But yeah, it was. You couldn't watch that. I think it was Anasta that made the comment. You can't watch that and not be emotional. And I think he was right. I nearly shed a tear while I was watching that.
You big softy.
It's a shame that he got that hat trick disallowed. I'm not sure exactly the call. I think Lomax or either him or Lomax were called offside, and it was quite disappointing because that could have changed the complexion of the game if St George ended up getting that try. But Raiders are obviously the far superior team at the end of the day.
Well, Ramsey's got Duffy to thank, and all his mates have got him to thank too with the 2 try assists that Duffy laid on for Ramsey, 2 big cutout balls.
Yeah, in saying that, Ramsey had a lot of work to do.
What was what's the Canberra winger name? Vanilli, or I think he was in no man's land, going up for intercepts and then missing the ball. And then Ramsey, all I did was just run to the try line. He schooled him.
Yeah, those times he got found out, but he ended up picking up his game later on in the second half. But the thing is about my critique about Cody Ramsey is that he wasn't taking the ball up enough. I think he only had about 6 or 7 touches, and obviously in 2 of those touches were tries. So
didn't do the tough stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to see him more in the middle, but maybe that was just the way he was coached, told not to get too involved and get smashed, because he's only 20. He's pretty young and new to the game. The last thing you want to be doing is running into Josh Papali and getting absolutely smashed. So yeah, it was quite a unique thing to see. You want to see those the wingers taking hit-ups, because you look at the Penrith Panthers and see what their wingers are doing. I think Mansour and was it Crichton or was it To'o? Sorry, was on the wing. They made 250 metres each just in that game against Parramatta, and not to mention Dylan Edwards at the back, nearly making close to 300, if not over 300 metres.
Yeah, they made 336 metres.
Yeah, see, there is so much work to be done there, and you compare that to the St George back three, and you've got Pereira. Pereira makes some strong runs, but you got Duffy and Cody Ramsey on the weekend.
Well, you missed Ravalawa. He usually does a lot of those tough runs. I mean, having him running back at you from the kick is pretty handy.
But even then, it's nothing compared to what Penrith. I think that's just far beyond. Even Parramatta, I think that's where they're struggling at the moment. I know we're charting into that other topic and we keep on teasing it, but the wingers aren't really performing at the moment. And you remember them last year and how dominant they were and how many metres they were making. I think they're struggling to make just over 100 this year.
Yeah, Ferguson's not having that same impact running the ball back from the kicks as he used to do. I think he only made 80 metres on the weekend compared to, as you mentioned, Mansour and To'o.
Yeah, and I think also Sivo is getting hit quite hard now, and I think people have worked him out. Just all you have to do is hit him hard, and then he'll fall down.
He won't run at you again.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. Your highlight, Rago?
My highlight? Well, you think about how much the modern-day centre has changed. So technically the centre is probably the most redundant position on the field at the moment. They're getting the least amount of ball, and they're less reliant on scoring tries. So mostly the fullback will be out the back setting up tries, and kind of the centre will be taken out of play. But you look at the quality of centres that we've got at the moment in our game. We've got Tony Staggs. We've got, I know he's injured at the moment, but Bradman Best is top quality. We've got Jesse Ramian. You mentioned he was your player you can't fault last week.
Firma,
yeah. He played fantastic on the weekend. You got Jared Croker, and you got Rapana actually played at the centre this weekend, and he was actually quite in good form as well. You've obviously, Lomax probably had his worst game on the weekend, but he's definitely in Origin contention if he can get
Campbell Graham's in that same light as well.
Yeah, Campbell Graham. You got Crichton as well from Penrith to play. So you've got quite a bit of options, and it's interesting with the Origin centres and who you would pick, at least for New South Wales, because they've kind of been teasing putting Whiten and maybe Trebojevic as the centres. And the thing about that is they're not specialist centres. So I would probably... in saying that, Whiten obviously did start his career in centre, but I would like to see some of those new centres come in, maybe Jesse Ramian or Tony Staggs come in, or potentially Lomax if he can control his errors. Would be interesting. So I think you've got to look to the future there.
I'm a bit worried about Ramian's defence. His attack is scintillating, but without the ball, I don't know if he's up to Origin standard. And I think it's important to note that these are all New South Wales centres that you mentioned, or just about, and the fact they've got so many waiting in the wings, yet the two centres that I think will play for New South Wales, they're not centres, as you said. They're going to be one 5'8" in Whiten and one fullback in Trbojevic. So that just shows how good New South Wales are going.
Well, Queensland have a similar issue. They've got Morgan playing centre, and I think I can't remember who. And Mbai was the other centre. Jeez, that's shocking. But I can't remember who said it. I think it was either Gordon, Tallis, Johns, or maybe it was Johns. Said that he actually or maybe it was Fittler. I don't remember. But they said that they see Morgan as a long-term centre rather than a 5'8", which is quite interesting.
Really?
It seems like a waste of money to put $1 million in as a centre because, as we said, it's probably the most redundant position on the field at the moment, and probably should be considered the least paid. I know there was that debate with Josh Dugan where St George wanted to pay him $700 and they wanted to pay him centre money as opposed to fullback money, and you're seeing the same now kind of with Josh Adokar where he wants to get fullback money as opposed to winger.
And growing up, you had the likes of Gaznia, Cooper, Matt Gidley, and Michael Jennings, and they were all just star players of the team. And then you fast forward.
Inglis at centre, don't forget him.
You fast forward
Hodges
now,
Tonga.
And you've got your best centre in the game was Manu and Staggs, and about 6 months ago, they were just starting their career, and it just shows that there's no real centres coming through. They're either playing fullback or 5'8". So now that's changed now though. There's a lot more centres in the last couple of months that have really come out of nowhere, really, which is good. That's
a good thing. You're right, because everyone grows up to want to be a fullback or a winger, and if you're a top quality player and getting paid a lot, they'll obviously put you in those key positions. And unfortunately, the people who are second rate or second to the best player in that key position will end up going to centre or wing. And you see that, even with Tuivasa-Sheck, for example. So he was on the wing for Roosters, and then obviously he got paid that big money deal, and he was being groomed at fullback, and then he obviously went to Warriors to play full-time fullback position. So, yeah, it's interesting in that regard where players don't really get paid a lot in that centre position. So it's good to see that some good up-and-comers, as you mentioned, come into that position.
Yeah.
So what's your low then?
My low is a bit of a weird one this week. It's something that's been eating away at me and getting on my nerves week by week, and that is kicking for touch. Half the kicker for a team, when they receive a penalty and they kick for touch. I want to know why they only can get 10, 15 metres for a kick when there's 30, 40 on offer. It blows my mind why they don't try and get more metres.
It's one of those old adages that better safe than sorry, but you see these players kick these amazing kicks, these 40-20s, they clearing kicks and they find space. But you're right, when they're in the middle of the field, they suddenly kick basically, just to the sideline.
The aim of rugby league is a territory battle. You want to get the most metres on offer as possible. And when you've got a penalty and you're kicking 10 metres, it's just a waste. It's just frustrating. And then another thing, a 40-20, call me stupid, but I don't think that's a hard kick. 40-20, it's 40. It's a 40-meter kick, for God's sake.
It's pretty difficult.
And they're professional athletes, and they can't do it more than 3 times in a season.
No, I'll tell you why it's difficult. It's because the player needs to be out of position, and you need to.
But on the third tackle, they're not there. All you got to do is get it 3 bounces in from the sideline.
Yeah, but you need to do it perfectly so it's not out on the full. Because think about going for a 40-20 and then kicking out on the full. You just completely let your whole team down, and now you give up amazing field position.
I'm saying that's their job. If you're a halfback, you train for that. You're a professional athlete. You should be able to kick a 40-20.
Yeah, well, we saw that on the weekend with Cleary when Ferguson was.
And I think just on that, it'd be worthwhile, I think, for a rugby league team to employ an AFL kicking coach, because if you get an AFL player to do that, they will do it with their eyes closed. 9 times out of 10, that's an easy kick for them. They can kick 50 metres on the run, hit a pinpoint. So I think there's an underrated tactic for teams to employ an AFL kicking coach to get the best out of their kickers.
Well, I don't know much about AFL, but is it generally easier to kick an AFL ball as opposed to a rugby league ball? Because I know
AFL balls are easy to kick. I mean, they're designed for kicking, but that's not to say that the disparity is that great. The rugby league kickers still shouldn't find it as difficult to kick. I think that there's a lot of improvement in them that they could achieve to kick at 40-20.
No, I know what you mean, especially when they've got the whole field to kick from, and it goes down the throat of the fullback or the wingers. And there should be definitely more kicks that end up finding space. I know there's some awful kicking by the Brisbane Broncos on the weekend, and I think there was
plenty awful about them.
There was about 12 kicks by Dearden, and I think about 5 of them were very average, or they were 30-meter kicks that just went straight down the throat, or they found the ground and then bounced up right for the fullback for slim picking. So, yeah, I agree. The teams should be. It can make the big difference having
the kicking with touch. Kicking with touch is the big one. I just would want to see at least 25 metres when you kick for touch for a penalty. None of the 10-metre bullshit. It's just.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a big frustration, especially when your team's kicking and then you see them.
If you're kicking from the middle of the field, sometimes I can appreciate it because it takes you longer to get to the touch. But if you're kicking from 20 metres in and you just booting it out, and it often goes to like the 5th row of the grandstand.
Yeah, I know.
What a waste.
But what about when a team, instead of going for a quick tap, they'll just kick it out 2 metres behind them to attack the line? I know it creates a bit of depth, but it just seems pointless to me.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the depth. They just want more room to do their sweeping plays before the defence can rush up.
But sometimes they literally just do it and they kick it directly in front of them, or behind them. Yeah, it makes no sense.
It's just a time killer.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the quick tap, but not when it's a brain snap like that Tolman deal back earlier in the
when he had the. Take the 2 to level it up, and he did a quick tap.
I'll never get over that. And I think they would have actually won that. Oh, and they would have drawn that if he kicked it. But anyway, my low this week is definitely the horrible TV schedules, and I'm going to go into a bit of detail. So, the Warriors and Cronulla game, that was definitely a marquee game, and it was a battle of the top 8 basically. And unfortunately, it was at a 6:30 time slot on a Sunday, and that's my most hated time slot because you're waiting around all day just for that 4 o'clock game, and then that ended up being an average game in itself between the Cowboys and Melbourne. So you're basically waiting around all day for one of the best games of the rounds, and that was 6:30 on Sunday. And when the game's over, you kind of feel depressed, and because you have work the next day.
Go to bed. Yeah, if the kicking wasn't my low, that was going to be it. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, well, and not to mention that 2 o'clock time slot on Sunday is actually the perfect time for rugby league.
It's my favourite time slot of the round. I like it more than Friday and Saturday nights.
Do you remember when they used to have the 12 o'clock Warriors game in New Zealand? And they used to have the 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then the 3 o'clock delay game.
Because that'll be 12 o'clock New Zealand, will be 2 o'clock our time.
Yeah, that was actually the best thing. And I know they only had the 2 Saturday games at the time, but I actually really enjoyed that time slot.
I make a case that the Saturday 3 o'clock game should be moved to Sunday and have 3 Sunday games. Because a lot of people on Saturday are playing sport or they're watching sport and then they're not watching rugby league. And I think on Sunday, everyone's at home. You just sit at home on Sunday or you go out and do an activity in the morning, you come home And all I want to do is watch rugby league. You're hungover sometimes. You just want to watch the footy.
No, I don't mind the 3 o'clock time slot. I mean, I know that was the argument not bringing it in early on because people do play sport. But mostly people have finished up sport by then. Most kids play sport in the morning, and then by the time they get home, it's about lunchtime. So I don't see an issue in having that 3 o'clock time slot. And in fact, it's probably an excuse to finish playing sport and then immediately go to the game. So I think we need to have more day games, and that's my frustration also with the 6 o'clock Friday game that happens, because you always get the awful crowds in that game because no one really wants to go a game at that time.
They're just finishing work.
You finish work at 5. You finish work at 5 o'clock. You're probably out the door by say 5:30.
Gee, you're staying back.
Well, I'm just saying.
Friday.
I'm just saying, like, people like to have drinks as well on a Friday, and that would. Yeah. I just don't see a point in having that Friday game, and I would like to see that potentially being put on a Sunday, and then maybe you could have the 6:30 Sunday game, maybe for that weaker time slot.
I think the Sunday 6:30 is just that's the worst time slot.
So you wouldn't have that at all.
At all, never.
So you'd rather have the 6:30 Sunday over a 6 p.m. Friday?
Yeah, I would, because 6:30 Sunday, that's the time where you're sitting down as a family, you're having your Sunday roast, and you're watching the Sunday night program.
Sunday roast is Andrew Voss.
You're not watching, and Tim Gilbert. You're not watching the footy. I mean, I want to, but it's just not a priority at that time. And I think 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock and even midday are much better suited. And finally, I don't know why they had a 2-week break, because the 2 o'clock game is on this Sunday. So it's back.
Yes, it's back this week. I'm not sure why.
Why they had a week off? Made no sense.
I have no idea. And they've been going back and forth this year. I think I might have to write a letter to Volandy, see what he says. Or I'm getting to listen to this podcast.
Yeah, we've gone on too long about this time slot. It's really a big issue of ours, as you can see. I hope you guys can relate. But moving on, player you can't fault, your segment, Alexander.
Player you can't fault. You can't go past Luke Keary this week. He had 5 try involvements. I think South Sydney, or specifically Russell Crowe's got to be kicking themselves at this time.
Would you say you can't fault him?
Yeah, you definitely can't fault him. Look, I'm going to go into detail as to why. But was it true that Russell Crowe was trying to run him over with a golf cart or something like that?
A quad bike.
Was he?
Maybe. Well, I knew there was some disagreement, some hostility between the two. I think Russell Crowe was taking the mickey out of him at a South presentation night, and I think he just didn't. He was sick of it. He was sick of getting bullied, so to speak, and they didn't get along.
Well, he wasn't in the best of form at South in those later years. I know he won the comp, and he was pivotal in that premiership win. He probably should have got the Clive Churchill medal of that game.
Oh, don't be silly.
No, I think he was probably one of the best. Who ended up getting Inglis?
Sam.
Oh, Sam Burgess got it. Yeah, but that's just only because he.
No, and then face. George probably was the best player. He scored the match-winning try.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think anyone could have beaten that.
Yeah, Keary definitely didn't get the raps that he gets now at the Roosters. I know he's a much better player now, but when he burst on the scene at South, you could tell he was a good player and there was something special about him. And at the time, I don't think South fans would have realised just how good he was going to end up being.
Yeah, well, he was involved in everything in that game. I think there was 5 try involvements that he had. He was just hitting everything at speed every time he got the ball. Yeah. Sorry, what did I say?
No, I was just clarifying. About the grand final.
Oh, right, sorry. Yeah, against the Knights, he was 5 try involvements, and there was everything. He was terrorising that right side attack, right side defence of the Newcastle Knights, and anytime he saw space, he just took it.
Yeah, you're right. He's so quick with everything he does,
and he's been really good. He's been really establishing a great combination with Flanagan, because Flanagan's very similar to Cooper Cronk in a way, so he's just allowing Flanagan to take control while he kind of plays off it. And it's going to be exciting watching them in finals. I know they'll probably go for their 3rd premiership in the finals, but you know what? They're a completely different team than they were last year, I think, and I think they're playing, if not better than what they were last year.
Gee, that's a scary thought, having the Roosters playing better than they did last year. They've won 2 in a row, and ominous signs for a 3-peat, which is quite scary and annoying. I'm sick of the Roosters winning every year, aren't you?
No, it should be. No, I mean, I'm not it doesn't matter if Roosters win another comp, as long as the football wins and there's a great match. I'm happy with whatever result there is.
It sounds like I've got Volandy's talking.
The thing is, Melbourne are also playing much better than they were last year as well. So if we can see a Roosters Melbourne Grand Final and the way that they played in that first game they had this year,
well, I think that's the way it's going to be, because they'll meet in the first week of finals, then they'll go on opposite sides of the draw.
Yeah, so we might get a little cock tease in that first round of the finals.
So I reckon they'll both be in a prelim on either side, and then if they both win that, which I think they will, then there'll be a Roosters Storm Grand Final. Unless I'll give Penrith a chance though, knocking Melbourne off if they face them.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough one. I think Penrith can on their day beat Melbourne. It should be interesting, but I don't know if Penrith can beat Roosters, because I just think Roosters have the game style that will be able to defeat Penrith. Because Penrith, the thing is, they only have a few ball players.
Speaking of one of those ball players, he's my player you can't fault this week, Jerome Luai. And I think he's still one of the most underrated 5'8" in the comp. And what he's done this year has put him on the scale of one of the better 5'8" in the league, I think. His game on the weekend was just one of the better dominant games from a 5'8" I've seen. He just looked so damaging whenever he ran the ball. Scored a try, set up another, created multiple chances down that left-hand side. And he's just a great foil for Cleary to do what he does best and control the side. Yeah,
as I mentioned before, as I was alluding to, that Penrith really only have a few ball players in their team. Edwards obviously can't really do much in terms of setting up tries. So Cleary is the one that's directing traffic, and the fact that Luai has been hitting form at the moment just means that he can take a bit of pressure off Cleary, and it just gives them a bit of variety in attack.
Well, they can play on both sides of the ruck now, and I think that was one of their question marks earlier on, that if Luai was up to the bigger stage, but he's blown those queries out of the water, I think, and giving Penrith a real chance to win the premiership.
Yeah, well, we should probably go into that Parramatta Penrith game now. I think we've been teasing it too long.
Do we have to revisit that again? That was just a bludger.
No, the thing is, Parramatta were defending actually quite well in that game. I mean, how much ball did Penrith have in that game? About 60%?
The first 25 minutes in particular it could have been 5-0. But Penrith were tackled over the line twice. I think they dropped it over the line as well. They just kept falling short, and I don't know if it's on another night. It could have been 30-0. I don't know if it was Parramatta's defence was up to the mark, but it also was a bit of unlucky for Penrith, I think.
I don't know if it was unlucky, because there was quite a bit of effort from Parramatta. I mean, I know that Mansour try late in the first half was a difference maker, because it kind of just took all the wind out of Parramatta's sails. Because if they could have kept it 2-0 going into the half-time, it would have been a completely different mentality from Parramatta.
Yeah.
And the fact that they just leaked in that last try really was a kick in the balls for them. So Parramatta, I know people will comment on how their attack was awful, but realistically, they were coming off their line their whole game. I know they were getting smashed.
Yeah, the effort was there.
Yeah,
the scramble defence was good.
And people were bagging out Cleary's, Moses' kick option. But what else could he do? He could only really do those clearing kicks, because he was kicking it from the 30-metre line or 40-metre line. He just had, I think in a different game, I think Parramatta will come with a different mentality, especially in a finals series. And I think Parramatta could potentially topple over Penrith if they get an early lead.
Penrith just ambushed Parramatta's forwards, and we haven't seen it all this year, because Parramatta's forwards have been the form pack of the comp, and they were just demolished across all aspects in the middle. And Parramatta just steamrolled them, and Parramatta couldn't make any yardage, which forced Moses and Field to have to keep kicking from the 30-metre line, and gave them no attacking options.
Yeah, and another thing is that Dry Field, I know he defended really well, but moving forward, I know that Dylan Brown and Marnie were out as well. We should mention that, actually, because that was a big difference maker. Yeah. And if those two did play, could have potentially made a big difference in terms of morale and attitude.
I don't think Brown would have had a difference, because they wouldn't have got them up the field and attacking if Brown was playing still.
If who, sir?
If Dylan Brown was playing.
Dylan Brown, yeah.
Marnie, maybe, getting the forwards, rolling onto the footy. But I don't think Dylan Brown will make that much of a difference in terms of that game in particular.
Yeah, okay. Well, if Dylan Brown can't play, I know Jai Field did defend well, but I would like to see Will Smith at 5'8". Yeah. I think he's got a bit of experience there and just offers a bit of attacking flair.
I think you're right. He does offer more in attack.
Yeah, I think he's definitely an option. And will Will Smith play? That's a good question. But I think what's going wrong with Parramatta at the moment is that their wingers aren't doing enough. So Ferguson, would you drop him at this point? What do you think?
No, I wouldn't. I think the only reason you drop a player like Ferguson is to send a message to the playing group saying, look, no one's safe in this team. You can all be dropped. But right now, at this point of the year, that's not going to achieve much, is it?
I agree. If it was going to be dropped, it would have been a couple of weeks ago.
And you can't... A calibre of the player that Ferguson is, you can't have him sitting on the sidelines, fresh, especially the way Parramatta are struggling. You need all the talent you can have on the park. I know he's not playing as good as he can be, but it only takes one game, and he's a freak of an athlete, and I back him to come out of this form slump.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Moses give him an absolute spray when he was caught out of position on that.
Yeah, I saw that.
320. So, yeah, he just hasn't been in form this year. I think he's been doing a lot of dumb things. Remember that pass he did? I think it was against Cronulla in the wet, and he just was a lunatic and just threw it from the 30-metre line back to the 50. It was just so dumb. And I think he scored 1 try in 17 games. He'll probably score this week now, I've mentioned it, because they are versus Brisbane. So, if Parramatta can beat Brisbane and Tigers, they can pick up some momentum moving into finals and maybe have a good showing.
So going back to what you boldly predicted in the intro, was that you think Parramatta could beat Penrith in the finals when they play 4v1?
Yeah, would that game be at Penrith or would it be at Bankwest?
Penrith.
It would be at Penrith. Look, I still think Parramatta would have a chance, especially, as I mentioned, if Marnie and Dylan Brown do play that game. And I think teams like Parramatta will lift for that game, and they'll definitely show a lot of effort. It's whether Penrith are able to deliver on their, their scintillating form at the moment, and see if they can replicate that. But I think if Parramatta get to an early lead, they can win that. And
if their attack can click, and you've got this theory actually that if two teams play each other just before finals, the team that wins won't win when they actually play in the finals.
We've actually seen a couple of examples of that. There was the Manly-Penrith one in 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Roosters-Rabbitohs did it twice, I think.
Yeah, that happened. St George and Parramatta in 2009 was another example of that. And, yeah, I know it's a couple of weeks out, but I think Parramatta can pick up some momentum. I think they will win the next two. They'll beat Brisbane on Friday, and then they'll have Tigers in Marshall's last game at West Tigers.
It's a matter of whether Parramatta can believe they can beat Penrith, because I was listening to Matty John's podcast, actually, and he was talking about the Storm Rabbitohs game, and he said, if I was the Rabbitohs, I would be so confident to play Storm in the finals, because I think that they know they can beat Storm, because in the 2 times they played them this year, they've been able to beat them, be in the game and actually being the better side for both those games. And he says he reminds him of when Manly, and you just touched on it with Manly and Melbourne playing in 2009. Was it the year that Manly flogged Storm in the final?
No, that was 2008.
2008. Well, Melbourne actually beat Manly in round 25 or 26 before that final series. And
then Matty John saw them.
Yeah, Matty John saw them all after the game in the change room. They didn't even care they lost to Melbourne, because they knew they were better than them. And they bloody flogged them 40-0 in the grand final. So my point being, if Parramatta can get anything out of that game that they can match it with Penrith and have the belief they can beat them, well then good luck to them. I think that they can do it in the finals.
But also Melbourne in 2008 lost that first week of finals to Warriors. So
Michael Witt.
Yeah, what was it? What a lunatic he was. Well, if Raiders actually get one win over Parramatta, they will actually overtake Parramatta and make the top 4. So I think that the top 8 will stay exactly the same way as it is at the moment. I don't see Parramatta losing the next 2, even though it is Marshall's last.
Top 4, you'd say the same.
No, top 4 will stay the same, I think. But yeah, I don't think Parramatta will lose to the Tigers, even though it is Marshall's last game at the West Tigers, because Tigers just don't seem to live for those big games for whatever reason. It's just a force of habit for them. But it kind of leads us into the other topic. Can Canberra win from 5th position, Jackson?
Yeah, I think they're a big smoky, a big dark horse. I think people have forgotten that they were in the grand final last year and very easily could have won that if it wasn't for the 6 again call and the little things went their way. And they've been there, they've played the big games, they've played the big finals, and if they'll beat Sharks first round, and if they'll probably get Parramatta in the second week, and they're better side than Parramatta are right now, which puts them in a prelim. And as we all know in rugby league, anything can happen in a prelim.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's almost as if they're too good not to be in the top 4. If there is going to be one team that wins the comp from the bottom 4, it is Canberra Raiders. But in saying that, they could actually lose to any of the other bottom teams. I mean, barring Cronulla and maybe Newcastle. No, to be honest, I actually could see Newcastle rise into the occasion. But it's a bit, I don't know. I think Raiders will definitely win their first week. But I could see them getting eliminated the second round to whoever the loser of the first two games of the top 4. So if it will be difficult. You got to win 4 games in a row in order to win the comp from 5th position. So I don't see Canberra winning this year.
I can see them beating every team bar the Roosters. Yeah. So if they get Roosters, if they can avoid Roosters and get them in the grand final, then anything can happen in the grand final.
You think they could beat Penrith?
Yeah, I do.
Well,
and I think they can beat Storm.
They're very. You look at that performance against St George though. Like I think a better team would have actually beaten them in that game. St George played absolutely awful. They bombed a couple of chances, but what I liked seeing from Canberra in that game is they took their chances. So whenever St George made a mistake, they capitalised on it. And that's what you see from a great team. And look, I just think it's too difficult to win 4 games in a row. I think the top 4 position is just too overpowered at the current final system.
Do you think having a week off is that influential?
Yes, I think it is. But also the fact that you play one of the better teams in the comp and you get a sense of kind of where you're at. So you can then prepare the week after, and then that's the opportunity where you have the do or die.
So I've said they are a dark horse. You don't think so?
I don't think they'll win the comp. I think they might put a couple of teams to shame, as you said, maybe Melbourne or Penrith, but I don't see them winning the comp at all. Okay.
Well, time will tell. Now, I actually love talking about signing news, and that's what we've got in this next little part. A lot of contract negotiations and off-contract players have come under scrutiny this week, in particular Joseph Suaalii. So he has been in talks with Souths and Rugby Australia for a number of weeks, months now, which is just getting a bit ridiculous. And his management, the reason for that is Souths are keen on him, he's keen on Souths, except the Rabbitohs don't want the contract clauses that he is demanding in his contract.
Yeah, so he wants a get-out clause in every year of that 5 years.
I think he wants an up. I think the get-out clause is the last 3 years, and he wants an upgrade in every year or every year after the first year, I think.
So it's just one of those things where he's putting himself first before the team, and if he really wants to play for Rabbitohs, he'll put the team first.
Well, what I think he should do is, if he's backing his ability that much, why doesn't he just sign 1-year deals?
Yeah, but I think he just wants that security. But
but he can't be thinking about injuries. I guess it is important to lock up his future, but he's only 18. If he doesn't know what he wants to do and he wants to hop between codes or teams, then 1-year deals is the way to go.
Have you seen him play though? He is quite a bit of a talent.
Yeah, he's a freak.
But I mean, that comes in with injuries though. If he happens to get injury in the second year of his, you know how you're saying he signed 1-year contracts. What happens if he gets signed at the end of one of the contracts and then obviously gets a lower asking price? But you know he's actually being bullied at the school he's at Kings.
Really?
Because they call him the $1 million player. And they had to call a meeting to say, you got to stop calling him the $1 million player.
How's that bullying? If I'm getting called $1 million player, I'm happy.
Exactly. There's definitely worse things to be called. But yeah, I think
like, yeah, thanks guys, we're getting paid $1 million to do what I love.
Exactly.
What do you want? I'll buy you lunch if you want.
But yeah, I think the 5-year contract's too long. You're saying 1 year. I think he should sign a 3-year deal with someone, maybe South.
Well, I just if he wants to sign for 5 years and he wants to commit to South, he can't have to say, but I want this, but I want that. If he's that good, then I guess you can warrant that. But he hasn't even played first grade yet. I don't think he can be demanding these sorts of negotiations.
Exactly. He's playing schoolboy rugby, so how can you tell it that schoolboy rugby compared to top tier NRL is just two completely different ball games.
So anyway, South have said that they're interested, but those clauses are just too much. So I guess I just want to see him decide on his future. It's a lot for a young kid to handle, and now obviously he's getting bullied. So hopefully he can decide in the not too distant future. Another big one during the week was James Tedesco, and he has signed a lifetime deal.
Well, has he signed it? Or has it just been offered? I thought he's just been offered it.
I thought it was signed. I don't know.
I thought he's been offered $6 million over 5 years, but he hasn't put pen to paper. But it's pretty much all but confirmed.
Yeah. Do you think that's overs? Who do you think's getting the better deal? Do you think the Roosters or do you think Tedesco's?
I think Tedesco. People are saying it's unders, but you got to remember Tedesco has a long, serious issue of ACL injuries.
But he hasn't had one for like 5 years.
But all it takes is one more, and his whole career can go off the rails. And I know he's an absolute talent, and you just watch him off the ball. I know you've got a habit at being at a game and then you kind of watch where the ball is, but you just watch where Tedesco is. He pops up everywhere, and he's the most active player on that team outside of maybe Keary. But he's just taken his ball game to an absolute different level. You look at the way that he has, mastered the ability to ball play. I know, in saying that, he is worth $6 million over 5 years. It's absolutely worth it. But the saying that it is a risk for the Roosters, considering the long nature of the contract.
Are you basing your judgment on the fact that he is getting third-party deals from Uncle Nick Politis, or he isn't? Is that coming into your...
Third-party deals, you mean under-the-hand paper bags?
A new car, a new boat, house.
Out of that $6 million, we'll probably only put, $1 million under the cap?
It's just... he'll be getting some pretty sweet third-party arrangements, I would have thought, which probably then makes the deal fair. Because based on that, I think Teddy could warrant $1.5 million, 1.5 a year.
But you also got to remember that the salary cap's gone down as well.
But it's going to players are going to start demanding more and more money as time goes on.
But
it's going to increase.
But the cap has decreased, so they can't.
That's because of COVID.
No, that's long term because they signed a new TV deal. I think the cap has gone down 10 to 15%. So players need to accommodate for that as well, and making those synergies.
Well, I just think if players are getting $1 million now, like if Cherry Evans, Cleary is getting $1 million a year now, in 2 or 3 years, what are they going to be earning? 1.5.
Yeah, well,
and then Tedesco's better than those players in my opinion. He's the best player in the game, and he could warrant 1.5 each year, and he could upgrade that every year. But it's a smart decision for him, I think, to lock away his future. That could be his last contract, and then there you go, take the $6 million and run.
Yeah, I think you should put pen to paper and become a Rooster for the rest of his career. I think he won't look back. Roosters are a well-run club, and he definitely will get the best out of him. So it's a good deal for both clubs, I think.
Yeah, players do tend to take less, and I think it's smart if they've had success at a club, and they'll take unders or from what they could have got if they went on the open market. But if you're playing well at a club, you're getting success, you've got to stay there, I think, for less money. Now another big name just yesterday, actually a bit of a surprise was the Manly international prop Adam Fanua-Blake, who was asked for a release to get out of Sydney. Now it's understood that the Warriors have offered him $850 a season for 3 years, so that's 2.5 basically for 3 years. What are your thoughts? Do you think Fanua-Blake is worthy that kind of money?
He's been Manly's best forward. Whether he's worth that much is a question mark. I think it just depends on how he performs. I think under Nathan Brown at Warriors, I am a bit sceptical. He would be a great forward in that team to bolster their forward pack and would be an absolute gun. But $850 is a lot to be putting into a player of that magnitude. And has he said why he's leaving?
I think he doesn't want to raise his kids in Sydney for whatever reason. I don't know.
Well, why do we know this? Like, it's obviously the management that's come out, similar to that Suwali dilemma. Like, the managers have been going out and spreading. He should be doing this on the down low. We shouldn't, as the public, know what's going on in his life and where he's looking to buy or to go. But I think other options may be St George. But if he doesn't want to raise his kids, Wollongong's probably not a better option. Brisbane's an option.
I think it's a pretty big name to come off contract. I think he's one of the top 3 props in the game at the moment, and $850 a year for a prop is a lot. But the way the game's moving, props are becoming not the big men, but the men like Fanua Blake who are still big enough but agile enough to adapt to the new rules. I think they can warrant that type of money because the halves need to play off the back of a big pack, and he's one to get the ball rolling and give the halves some space to play off the back of.
Yeah, no, it would be a good sign if he went to Warriors. But $850 obviously is the question mark.
Yeah.
It all depends on how much you pay for them, and I think that's the ultimate story. So we've also got Offengawi looking to sign a 3-year contract with St George, and there's a good chance that Maguire may follow suit. I like the Offengawi signing. He's played for Queensland twice, and he has quite a bit of game experience, which would really benefit those young forwards in the St George team, like Lowry and Kerr. He's 100 games at 25, so it's quite a few games under his belt.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of the Maguire signing. I think Maguire's best days are behind him. Sorry.
I think Maguire's a bit overrated. I think it's always been overrated in my opinion. I don't think he's ever done anything or does anything to warrant the high praise he constantly gets.
But he is a bit of a grub that is probably what St George need at the moment, where they've got a bit of mongrel. Like what Wayman was in Costigan and Jeremy Smith, that great forward pack in the early 2000s.
He reminds me of Neville Costigan, actually. He's got a similar build, similar playing style to Costigan. He's just short, stocky. He doesn't... But at lock in this current climate, all the good teams have got... Their number 13 can ball play. And... Maguire.
Well, you have to put him at prop because you got to remember.
But then he doesn't really dent the line, though.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's a good signing.
He's like a Tolman.
Yeah, it would remind me of like a signing like Graham, and it's a bit of backward signing where they're at the end of the career and it's just not worth it. But speaking of forwards who are being re-signed, we've got Papali signed with the Canberra Raiders for 3 years, and this has been his best year. I think he's actually. You mentioned Fanua Blake being the best prop, but I think Papali actually is the best prop this year.
No, I said top 3.
Top 3, okay.
Behind Papali. So we're in agreement there, and I think that's a great signing for Canberra and also for the game because you like seeing players who have played for one club remain at one club, and I think it's fitting that Jack White and Joe Croker are all going to finish around the same time, and they're all going to play for the Canberra Raiders their whole career. So I like it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great signing for Canberra to really keep their stability and moving forward for the next 3 years. But you also look at Tarmow as well signing with the Tigers, and he's got strong experience. He's 31 years of age, and I think he will have something to offer with the Tigers. It also depends, going back to Fanua Blake again, it depends on how much you pay. Rugby league is like a game of chess where you have each piece and it all depends on how much you're paying for each piece. And if you're paying anything more than probably $400 for Tarmow, I think you're probably not getting...
I don't think I think he'd be getting $250, I'd say, $250, $300.
You reckon that much? Okay. Well, if it's for that, I think that's a great buy for them and it'd be really great.
He's 32, at the end of his career. I think it's just his last contract before he retires or goes to England, so I don't think he'd be demanding that much coin, which is, as you said, a good buy for the Tigers. All right, for our weekly segment this year, pass or run.
That's a sloppy pass, that one.
So it's run now?
Yeah, you kept on having a go at me saying it's going to be run, so... I made it run.
Okay, runs are good. I like it. I prefer run because it makes more sense. You don't play. Play is just playing the ball.
You've said this before. That's not. Now, you can take charge of this. What do you want to talk about?
So, Dean Young is leaving for the Cowboys. St George have also told Flanagan to leave the team, which is quite interesting because they've just signed Hook, Anthony Griffin. So, what do you think about this? So, I also note that they got rid of Ben Hornby last year, and they are They're signing back Matthew Head as well to look after the New South Wales Cup team.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's with this overhaul and coaching? Is there too much chopping and changing?
So, Griffin's coming in, and Flanagan and Young are leaving.
And Matthew Head's coming in as well.
Well, you like Flanagan, don't you?
I was a huge fan of Flanagan, but the thing is,
so
Hook's not going to... Well, Anthony Griffin's not going to like the fact that Flanagan's underneath him and fishing around for a first-grade spot. I think it's probably for the best interest of Anthony Griffin to not have Flanagan around, and I think a team who can pick up Flanagan will definitely benefit, and I'm not sure who that exactly is at the moment. Maybe potentially Brisbane.
He might have to go another assistant role and wait in the wings for his second chance at NRL coaching.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who kind of picks him up, but he'll be a great addition to whoever.
So let's make the parcel run. Anthony Griffin for the trade of... So you're getting Anthony Griffin, but you're losing Dean Young and Flanagan. Are you passing or are you running?
See, that's a tough one because we agreed that Anthony Griffin was play or a run.
But is it worth losing those two?
I think so because Flanagan is only going to be around for one more year before he has to become a first-grade coach, and he's not going to...
He doesn't have to.
Well, he's not going to be assistant when he can be a full-time coach,
Yeah.
so... I think I have to play on that one.
Yeah.
And Dean Young, he was going to go to Cowboys, and he's going to get some great experience. He's never actually left Wollongong in any shape or fashion. He's always played there. He's been a one-club man. He's going to go to Cowboys, and he's going to learn a whole new philosophy and style of play, and then he can potentially come back to St George at some point.
Yeah, because that's where his heart and his loyalty lies. So he'd probably want to have a go at coaching Dragons, but I'm going to have to agree with you on the run for that one. I think if you're the Dragons board and the Dragons club and you've signed Anthony Griffin, you've done it for a reason, and you've got to back him 100% and not to have Flanagan waiting in case something goes wrong. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I agree with that. We're both running on that.
All right, my favourite segment, the bold predictions. Unfortunately, I suffered my first loss last week. The Warriors let me down. Their miracle, their fantasy of making the top 8 was diminished.
I'm yet to win a bold prediction. So whatever I say, as I said last week, bet against.
All right, well, I'll start us off, the winner. I'll make a little multi. I've got Parramatta 1-12, so I think Brisbane will keep it close. I've got Storm to win 20+ against the Tigers. I think their match against the Cowboys last week, they were in a position to really smash the Cowboys. We let them back into the game, so I think that won't happen 2 weeks in a row. And I will have the Dragons to beat the Knights. So they'll be paying. They'll be paying at $20.
Jeez, you're getting a bit risky there. Prediction. I'm sure.
Go hard or go home, I say.
I'm sure they will all win. I'm not sure about that Dragons one, but nonetheless, because that is old boys' game, so we should mention that.
Dragons?
No, for Newcastle.
Oh,
and I think they've only lost 2 old boys' games, even when they were awful.
Oh, well, they're due for a loss then.
All right, well, my bold prediction, I'm going to go a safer route. It's not totally safe, but I'm going to say Manly 13+. Especially with Trebojevic, I think he's a 14-point player, so he might save 2 tries a game, and then he'll actually be involved in 2 tries. So he's actually a big player, a big factor. Big in. Yeah, he's a big in. I think he's been the world of difference for Manly being out, and I think they've really struggled without him. So that's my bold prediction.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's it?
That's my bold prediction. I need to go safe, otherwise I'm going to be screwed.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a hottie, but that just makes it fun, doesn't it? All right, well, big episode this week. Went a bit longer, but there was a lot to talk about, unless we were just gibbering. You be the judge. But we had fun. Hope you guys enjoy listening, and we'll see you next week at the regular time slot of Tuesday night.
Yep, and don't forget to leave a comment because we want to be answering your questions.